We'll continue media availability with Daniel Suarez, driver of the number 19 Interstate Batteries Toyota. Daniel, you've had a lot of success here in Charlotte, finished 11th in the Coke 600 last year, followed up with a 6th-place finish in the fall. Does that give you a little confidence going into this Sunday's race?
Yeah, for sure. Charlotte has been a good place for me. I don't know. It's just one of those places that for whatever reason you feel comfortable and you get good results and seems like you build from that. And actually today so far, obviously just one practice, 3 runs actually. That's exactly what my team did, and the car felt pretty good. The racetrack is changing. First time out it was a little greasy, and then it actually got better. So I'm looking forward for tonight's qualify. I feel like we have a pretty good, strong 19 Interstate batteries Toyota Camry, and hopefully we can put the car in the front.
Great. We'll open up for questions. If you have one for Daniel, please raise your hand. We'll bring you a microphone. State your name and affiliation. Great.
Daniel McFadden with NBC Sports. Daniel, with your experience in the Coke 600 last year, how grueling was that race for you? Was it what you were expecting, and how have you adjusting your philosophy strategy-wise to approach this race?
Well, the race it was a little bit longer than what I was expecting for sure. It's just a marathon. You have to organize your stuff, be patient. I remember last Coca-Cola 600 in the first quarter of the race, I was pretty bad. I didn't have a lot of speed, but that didn't mean that in the second half of the race I wasn't going to be fast. Actually, we made a couple adjustments, and obviously the racetrack changed a lot. And by the second half of the race, my car came alive, and actually I think it became a top 10 car. Times maybe even top 5 car. So we finished 11 for a few miles deal, but I feel like we had a little bit better car than that. And overall, I feel like it's a big deal. It's a big race, obviously, and I feel like a lot of things play at the same time, physically, mentally, and not just as a driver, but as well for everyone in my team. So looking forward to get that challenge this weekend.
Let's go over here to Jerry next.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and Performance Racing Network. I'm curious, how's your thumb? You were able to continue to rack up some pretty good finishes. Did it affect you at all? Is it okay now?
Yeah, I would like to say that it's almost perfect. If I bent my finger far enough to one side or the other, I can still feel the pain a little bit. Obviously, I don't do that when I'm racing, but it's much better. I feel like maybe, I don't know. I have no idea when it's gonna be perfect, but it's pretty close to perfect. It doesn't bother me at all. Just when I want to, push to see how good it is when it does bother me a little bit. But overall, it's good. I've been already for a few weeks racing without my little cast, so I feel pretty good about it.
Go back here.
Daniel Hill Overton, WIXC Radio. Looking at your car this week versus what you drove last Saturday night, what differences do you see out there, and what do you anticipate between how the racing was Saturday night in the All-Star event versus what it's going to be in the 600?
Well, I think the biggest difference is that the one from Saturday was orange and this one is green. but that was maybe the biggest thing, and everything else. I think racing is gonna be different, but it's gonna be as good as last Saturday. Really a different package, different way to race, I guess. But the racing is gonna be, as a driver, is gonna be just as fun. Obviously less downforce, more power, more what we are used to normally. So I'm excited. I'm excited to come back. My team has been making a lot of gains lately in mile and a half on this package. So looking forward to start the weekend on Thursday with a good practice, and obviously continue that into a good qualify.
We'll go to Kelly and then to Jim.
Kelly Crandall, Racer.com. Daniel, you've given a lot of credit to the team lately with how far you've come, but what about your personal development as a Cup driver from where you were last year at Speed Weeks to today? How do you feel about how you've come along?
I feel okay. I feel like I need to keep working in some areas to just to keep improving myself and to get better as a race car driver and to be more consistent, and to push the limits maybe sometimes a little bit more. But I feel like we are good. We're in the right track. I wish we can run more often in the top 5 to be able to win races. But it's tough. The Cup Series is not easy at all. I remember last year at this point I was already knocking into the door to several top 10s, and I thought to myself, at this point in the race in my career in the Cup, we're already in top 10s. We're gonna be running top 5 and maybe knocking to the door into wins very soon, and that's not the case. It's just very tough because the competition is always changing and it's difficult, and I feel like we have to keep working on it. I mean, it's just that next step from being running top 10 car to running into a top 5 and being able to win races is a very difficult one, and it's been taking me a while to make it right. We've been there, but not very consistent. So that's my goal, personal goal, and my team obviously as well. So I feel like now we're moving in the right direction. Obviously, results like Dover last weekend really help us to build from that, and hopefully we can keep doing that.
Go to Jim next.
Jim Utter, motorsport.com. Daniel, you talked about your affinity towards Charlotte here. Do you feel like that you've made enough progress? This track is known for producing many first-time winners in the Cup Series. Do you feel like you guys have made enough progress that perhaps that next one could be you?
It could be. I can tell you that if we can put ourselves to run into the top 5 every weekend, we can win anytime. Once you are in the top 5 around those guys, those crazy restarts, you don't have to be the best car to win a race, and that has happened several times. Obviously, if you have the best car, you must win the race, right? But I feel like it can happen anytime. We just have to run into a top 5. We just had a pretty solid first practice, qualified practice. I feel pretty good about it. My team feels pretty good about it too. So Charlotte has been a good place to me. I feel good mentally and physically. So why not? Would be great to have Interstate in Victory Lane one more time. I've been with them in Victory Lane already once in the past. Norm Miller has been a great supporter from my team and this program, and looking forward to have a strong weekend with him.
And we'll go to Woody.
Woody came with MRN. And Daniel, you mentioned the progression and the steps you guys have been taking to get better. You go to Pocono next week where you had a top 10 last time there. When you go back to a place where you have had some success to build on, does that give you more confidence? And at a track like that all 3 corners are so different, do you focus on being really good on one of them or pretty good on all 3?
Well, you try to be as good as possible in all 3, but most likely is difficult. You have to just to try to be very good in I guess in 1 and 3, and being as good as possible in 2. But I don't know. I never won there before, so I'm not sure if that's right or not. We have to. I'm one of those drivers that I don't like to think about. In this case, Pocono, when we're here in Charlotte, I like to put all my effort here, and then next week I'm going to be able to think about Pocono. But I feel pretty good about Pocono as well. I haven't honestly think about it at all, but I feel like it's going to be good. I like shifting a lot, so obviously we're going to be shifting some in that place, and I really enjoy that.
Daniel, appreciate you joining us today. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you, guys.
We are now joined by Matt Kenseth, driver of the number 6 Wyndham Rewards Ford. Matt, you picked up your first Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series victory in the Coke 600 18 years ago, driving for Jack Roush. Can you reflect on that just a little bit and then talk about what it would mean to return to victory lane this weekend with newly minted Hall of Famer Jack Roush?
Yeah, I'm happy for Jack to finally get in the Hall. He certainly deserves to be there. It's put over 30 years of his life into this sport. So it's that was really neat to see that yesterday. I'm proud of him. Happy to be able to be a small part of that and enjoy a lot of the successes that he's been able to have in the sport. So yes, that's exciting.
We'll open up for questions for Matt. If you have one, please raise your hand and we'll bring you a microphone. Jerry?
Jerry Jordan, KickingTires.net, Performance Racing Network. How's it been? You liking it being back here? You rethinking going back and driving a school bus yet or anything? What's it been like?
Well, we're not very far into this yet. Kansas was a struggle the whole weekend. Last weekend was very unique, running restrictor plates and all that stuff at Charlotte and All-Star format and stuff. So that was kind of different. So I was glad to be able to get on the track and get a full practice in today. Hopefully weather will be good and we'll be able to get a qualifying session in tonight and go back to work Saturday. So I feel like we learned a couple things today so far, and hopefully get qualified respectable and get back to work Saturday on Racestream.
But being where you were in the past and where you are now with schedules and things of that nature, has it loaded you up more than what you expected, or do you get to control what happens in the day-to-day?
I wish I could control everything that happens. I've been doing this a fairly long time, and the schedule's not really any different than what I thought it would be, assuming you're talking about my weekends and weeks right now. So no, nothing really, no real big surprises yet.
Over here.
Matt, they decided not to run the same aero package as the All-Star race. What are your thoughts on that? Would you like to see them do the same thing? It was a pretty competitive race.
No, not if I'm driving. I thought the racing was this is just my opinion. I thought the racing was pretty entertaining Saturday. I thought the Open, assuming that's what they still call it, was really good. But yet we all have really short memories. If you think back a year ago, the Open was really, really exciting too with this aero package. So I don't know. You gotta be careful about taking that little of a sample size and just saying this is going to be the greatest thing ever, because we've all seen that, and when you take that rules package and you give it to the garage and let them work on it for a month or so, I think you're going to have things looking very similar to how they looked before you change that. I think the low downforce thing is a good example of that. I think the racing, in my opinion, even from being home this year, has been really, really, really good and really entertaining, and still about driving race cars and not doing just restrictor plate racing and being in line and doing all that kind of stuff. So I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a good thing to try. I don't know if it's necessarily what I would want to see to run on a weekly basis, but it was okay.
We'll go to Deb next.
Deb Williams, racing today in ESPNW. With the way the sport has changed, do you as a driver have as much input into your setups as now, or do the engineers and the simulations and all seem to outweigh that?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of drivers out here today, myself included, I knew bits and pieces here or there, but really know and understand necessarily the whole setups, the way they're all derived today with the no ride height thing. And I think it's more engineering and aero, than it is anything else. So if you're short, on one department, if you're off on downforce, you just don't have a chance. So it's different than what it once was. I think you need to understand the car the best you can, give the best feedback you can to your crew, and try to field changes and relay that and look at data with them and make them understand what you're going through in the car and what you're feeling like and what you're looking for. But in today's day and age, you got to have people that all the right people that are smart enough to diagnose all that and figure out how to fix it and give you what you need. So that's a little different than it once was. Yep.
Well, Matt, we appreciate you joining us today. Good luck this weekend.
Lee has a question, I think, unless she just had an itch.
We scratch it.
Oh, I saw this, but then I wasn't sure if it was,
What was the team meeting like this week when, after being there your second week and just kind of, getting back with the group and chatting it up?
It was fine. You want more than that? Nothing really any different. Just trying to, we've had two races with two very different, formats, aero packages, engine packages, and all that. So I mean, it's for me anyway, it's still pretty new, and there's a lot of different things to try to work through, or at least that I would like to work through, and just trying to keep getting a better feel for it every week, and kind of try to give my opinions for what they're worth and what I feel like we could do different and better, and what we're doing good. It's that type of thing. So nothing really real different. Yep.
Right here.
Matt Like Solarte, Spectrum News. With you returning at Kansas and then the All-Star race, and now you have the longest race. I'm trying to phrase this in a general way. How is your fitness for 400 laps? Because you haven't done as much racing this season. I mean, you look in great shape, but this is a grueling test for you guys over the course of day to night.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay. I think I'll make it. I'm in. Not that anybody ever wants to brag about anything, but as far as where I've been the last 20 years, I'm in pretty good shape right now. I've had a lot of time to train the last 6 months, and so I'm not worried about the physical aspect of it. I'm more worried about trying to keep up, get our cars a little faster, so we can, first of all, stay in the lead lap. Second of all, hopefully start moving forward and getting kind of in the mix and start to get forward. So, but certainly I think it's tough on anybody, no matter what kind of shape they're in, that long a race, and being that, if it's hot, and staying hydrated and eating right and getting sleep and doing all those things. But just pure physical fitness, I feel pretty good right now. I've had a good few months, and I feel pretty good.
Daniel?
Dale McFadden, NBC Sports. Since you won this race in your rookie season, how has your philosophy, strategy-wise, to this race changed in the years since then, especially with the introduction of stages last year for this race?
I just, so many things have changed. I mean, it's been a lot of years, and there's just been so many changes since then, mainly with the cars, but some of the biggest ones are, probably not as adjustable as they once were, and the track goes through a fairly big change, but there is no more, pacing yourself or, choosing a certain gear because you want your engine to live, and like all that stuff is kind of all in the past, so it's different. Everybody just runs as hard as they can every lap, for 5 hours to try to get the best finish you can, because you just can't afford to give up spots, can't afford to pace yourself unless let somebody in front of you, because you might never get back around them. So I'd say that's the biggest part. There's not a ton of attrition and problems, and the survival thing isn't quite what it once was. The cars are certainly way more comfortable and more creature comforts than what we had when I started, and they drive better. They got way more downforce and side force, and so I think those things make it different. It's pretty much, you don't approach that 600 miler any different than if it was 300 miles, to be honest with you. I mean, you can't really not run hard. Yep.
Matt, thanks again for joining us.
All right,
Appreciate the time.
Hi again. We are now joined by Bubba Wallace, driver of the number 43 Kroger Coca-Cola Chevrolet. Do you want to kind of talk about your partnership with them this morning?
Yeah, it's an exciting partnership with Coca-Cola, being a Coca-Cola racing family driver for numerous amounts of years now. So continuing to grow that relationship is always fun, and also being partnered up with Kroger for the Red, White, and Barbecue platform has been cool. It's a tongue twister for sure, trying to get that through, not say red, white, and blue, but we're all representing NASCAR salutes is all kind of tied in with that, as we're representing at the same time Technical Sergeant Scott Doveman, and his family will be here to hang out with us and have a lot of fun. So excited about this weekend.
So I'm going to open the floor for questions. Lee?
How did the whole Kroger deal come together?
Say again?
How did the Kroger deal come together?
It's a good question. How did any of these deals come together? The partnership with Coke definitely helped out a lot. They're in tons of markets, and we went to them and that they kind of come up with this platform of how we can kind of incorporate Coca-Cola with Kroger and celebrating with friends and family, and what Memorial Weekend is all about.
Up front to Mike Neff.
Thank you. Mike Neff from FriendsFrench.com. Bubba, Daniel Hemrick was in here earlier, and I got this crazy idea to ask him a question, so I'm going to ask you as well. You've been through the summer shootout ringer a few times and actually raced in the rain. obviously we can't do that on like 1.5 and 2 mile tracks, but do you think it would be a viable option to try it at some place like, say, Martinsville or Loudon with rain tires in the rain with stock cars?
No, because there's no room for error, no room for, getting a little bit of wheel lock up. There's no runoff. There's something to run into, and it's only 20 feet away. It's a big concrete wall there, so I don't think it'll be, we'll be able to do it anywhere unless we build some racetrack. Hell, we're building new racetracks inside of racetracks now, so don't give Marcus the idea. He'll build something.
Bubba, I know this has obviously been a crazy year for you with being your first full-time season at the Cup Series, but have you had a chance to kind of step back, and now that you're 12 races in and you're at home here in Concord, and how do you think the first 12 races have gone for you?
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying the hell out of this year. I'm having so much fun, and some weeks are good, some weeks are not what we want, but we're continuing to grow and learn from it, and that's all you can do. And everybody I've run into that has been around for this many years in this sport have continued to kind of tell me the same message, is that, not really blowing up my head, but kind of blowing up my head, and saying we're doing the right things, doing the best with what we got, and when the car's right, it shows. And when we're off a little bit, that also shows as well. But as long as we capitalize on those days and get the most out of it that we can, that's a successful day, despite the finish that we didn't really want. We're a small team, small budget, and we've shown some signs of great success throughout the year. So I'm excited about the tracks that are coming up. We get into the tracks that I made my first 4 starts at last year, while subbing in for Eric. So looking for a lot of momentum to kind of, come up throughout this next month or so, this next stretch.
We're going to go to Woody, Jerry, Jacob, and then kick it over there.
So Woody came with MRN. Want to look ahead to Pocono next week. Last year you were there and had an adventurous day and wound up passing out, I think, after the race. Just your memories of that and going back there. And if you're a guy who likes to chase one particular corner or be pretty good in all 3 there.
Hell, I'm not good at any of them. That's one of my worst tracks. But we had a good day that day. We had a good weekend. The atmosphere and just the moment. Making my debut in the top level here, and I remember that day very well. I remember every lap. I remember every speeding penalty I had. I think it was about 15. But to be able to come away with it and fast forward a year later and get to go back and reventure all that, I'm excited about it. We had a good balance. We had a good car. For that weekend, or just my mistakes kind of took us away from what we really had. So we'll go back there next year or next week and see how we can better that program.
Jerry Jordan, KickinTires.net and Performance Racing Network. Next week you'll have a different paint scheme with Wise, and this week was Kroger. It's part of the Coca-Cola and Smithfields. There was contests, things that are happening with your career. How are you liking the exposure? Are you pretty happy with where you're at and getting your name out there, and where do you see it continuing to go as you're kind of becoming a household name?
Yeah, that's big. I mean, I appreciate all the support that we're getting from anybody and everybody. Being here, I'm trying to set myself aside from everybody else and be that different face and have that different attitude and cut up and have fun with you guys and with the fans. It's what it's all about. It's all about bringing a different perspective in and not being the same person. So I've definitely enjoyed that journey and that battle. I'm super competitive, so when we're getting talked about a lot, we have to. For me, it's like we need to back it up with some results. So and I read that stuff on social media, and I don't let it get to me. But at the same time, I'm agreeing. It's like, damn, we're kind of throwing us out there, and we're not having the best of weekends, and it's kind of not the best spotlight to be in. But anybody that's talking about you is a good day, I guess. But we definitely look at it as stuff as a department we need to improve in for the performance side to get talked about even more. So we'll see what happens.
Go to Jacob.
Jacob Seelman, Speed Sport. Mike kind of touched on it a little bit ago, you being an alum of the shootout here at Charlotte. talk a little bit about your memories of coming up through the ranks on the quarter mile, and what does it mean to you to see it reach 25 years this year?
Damn, it's been that long.
It has been that long.
Wow. I miss race legend cars and stuff out here. It's I hate to see how it's kind of the path that it's kind of gone down. The age limit of getting into super late models and late models has definitely hurt. This process of going through these ranks, and I've always said when I have kids, which is years down the road, we don't need a follow-up question about that. I would definitely throw them through kind of the same path that I went through, instead of coming out of quarter midgets or go-karts and jumping straight into a full-size stock car. I mean, I feel like that kind of hurts you. You don't really learn car control, and you put yourselves in a lot of bad spots early on, and I guess you can learn. The learning factor comes up a lot quicker in that process. But being out here a part of this, and I remember coming out when I was 10 years old, running the shootout. And I remember this night specifically running on pole night. We used to have the big screen right here on the front stretch, and one race I had a big enough lead where I was watching myself going down the back stretch. I'm like, oh, okay, we got about 20 car lead here in the Bandolero. And I'd overdrive the next corner, messing up, trying to watch all that. But good times for sure. Being over in turn 3 and 4, or turns 1 and 2, watching the Cup cars qualifying after we got done racing and winning in front of a crowd. So there's a lot of good memories that come out of this place, and it's always fun to talk about, with Hemrick and other guys that we ran with, Blaney and Chase. Chase had the ugliest car ever when he raced. Green car with green wheels, just absolutely horrible. But there's a lot of good memories that come out of it.
We're going to go Chapel, Phil, and then David.
Chapel Fowler, Charlotte Observer. Bubba, this is the first 600 to feature 3 alumni of the Drive for Diversity program. You, obviously, and Suarez and Larson. Obviously a small step, but what's it like to see some progress for representation of minority groups in NASCAR?
That's big. Being, kind of on the leader of the forefront of that, with myself or with Suarez and Larson, we all kind of know the roles that we carry and what it's like to kind of be in that spotlight. And, I'm starting to see more minorities and just a different demographic at the racetrack and followers on social media. So it's all continuing to grow. It's not huge numbers that are flowing in, and it's not going to happen like that. The outsiders that look into the sport think that switching manufacturers and new driver and all this stuff, that teams just kind of change things overnight and become a superior team. That's not how it works, and it goes for the same as changing up the demographic. It's all about word of mouth and getting one fan or one family out for them to go back, or for them to experience the excitement of this sport and what it has to offer, and them to go back and tell the next family. And it's like a cycle. And next thing you know, you start seeing more and more. So, for us, I'm trying to, represent our team and my brand the best and most fun and positive way for them to, hey, we were around that Bubba Wallace kid, and, he makes it enjoyable to be at the racetrack. And even when I'm at my worst, I try to put on my best and carry that positive attitude. So it's been a fun process. It's a tough process, trying to juggle all the emotions and the pressure there. But at the end of the day, it's our job to go out there and perform and put the best foot forward.
David?
David Scott from the Charlotte Observer. Bubba, could you describe the day you had at the Air Force Base a week or two ago, what that was like, and maybe what kind of different perspective it gave you on the military?
Yeah, we did 2 in the last 2 weeks, right, Jeff? Yeah. We went to Seymour Johnson, and then we went to Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg is massive. We landed there at the airport there, and it felt like we did an hour drive to get to our little appearance, and it was just on the other side of the strip. So, but being at Seymour Johnson, we got to do active shooter kind of gameplay and how they would handle the situation and go through all that, and how they would call dispatch for them to for the police and ambulance EMTs to come out and get on the scene, and it blew my mind because an active shooter is on base in one building, and we got tanks and stuff in another building and all the big military weapon, but we still got to call the police to come in there and handle the situation. I'm like, it seems like, you know, we're wasting a lot of time here. Let's just go ahead and terminate the situation right now. And it was cool to see how they went through it. They kind of threw a curveball on everybody that was participating in that. I think they had practiced up for a month or so leading up to that in one building, and then the day of, minutes before, they were like, we're going to do it into a new building. So everybody was kind of scatterbrains, and so it was cool to see them kind of go through the emotions of that, trying to figure out, you know, what they need to do. But definitely a cool experience in that part. Then going out and being right there next to the jets and the fighter jets and being with the crew chiefs and the pilots and seeing, you know, the checklist they go through, and it's the same thing for us. It's like a nut and bolt for us to make sure everything's good before they go up in the air and before we tackle the racetrack. So a lot of parallels. They're just going the probably 3 times faster than us right away. We did talk about from a drag race. How far could we get ahead of them before they eventually caught up to us? And we were thinking it would be a good ways because, you know, we can accelerate pretty fast, but obviously they're going to catch us. So we were thinking, I don't know, 100 yards. We could carry them maybe 200 yards until they blew by us, literally. So it was a fun day. It's always great to go down there and hang out and give time with the people the men and women that fight for our country and fight for our freedom. And you know, that just comes with the partnership that, you know, RPM and Richard Petty and the Air Force have, doing those fun, exciting things, getting to go up in the jets and have fun, jump out of helicopters and airplanes and do all that fun stuff. So I'm excited. You know, it's a dream of mine to be able to do that stuff and hang out with them. Just kicking back, and those guys are for what they go through, they are just as huge fans of this sport and normal people just like we are.
We're going to go Phil, Mike, and then Jessica.
Hey, Bubba, Phil Orban from WSOC in Charlotte. You were talking earlier about kind of managing expectations and staying patient and sticking with the program, but knowing how competitive you are, how tough was it for you to get in that kind of headspace and be that patient, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you realize, you know, what, as you climb up through the ranks and get to certain levels, you realize where you're, you know, where you're at, where your team's at, where everything at that you have in your camp is going. And you know, I talked to a lot of people, and I actually ran into Mike Skinner last night at the Speedway Children's Charity Gala. We were leaving, and you know, he was one of those guys, like, was doing a hell of a job, and, you know, keep it up. And he was talking about, you know, being at the truck and Xfinity level, you can kind of make some ground up. But he says once you get to the Cup level, every single one of these nice guys, you know, keeping it PG here, are sharks. And you know, we're out for blood. Each and every one of us is out for blood, and there's no, you're going to get 1 or 2 spots to try to make better. But if you're off, you're off. And these guys will capitalize on that. And that's been probably the biggest adjustment of how aggressive you can be with these guys and not overstep the boundaries. So that always comes with a huge learning curve for us. And, you know, thinking that I was one of the most aggressive coming out of the Xfinity and Truck Series, and then got here and I got my teeth kicked in. And it was a huge eye opener for me. And that's been a fun journey to get a hold to.
Mike
Solarte, Spectrum News. Take these off 'cause I'm echoing. When you look at first-time winners at this racetrack for the 600, is this a dream of yours to obviously win a Cup race, but getting this one here in particular, is this one that you've maybe circled in your mind, saying, if I can get this one, this would be the perfect start to racking up victories in my career?
Yeah, I mean, any of them would be, like you said, any of them would be special. You know, this one is a home court advantage for, I wouldn't say an advantage, but a home court race for all the teams. I mean, except for Furniture Row, it's right out of Colorado. But we know all of us drivers live here, and so we consider this a home track for us, and it'd be special to win here for sure. So we got a lot of work to do to get there. But you know, you never know what can happen. You know, look at, you know, how the 3 car of Austin Dillon won last year with fuel strategy. So you never know, if we put ourselves in the right position. Drew is good at really managing our races, when they're not going the best way, but to capitalize on our position. So we'll see what happens when it comes down to Sunday night.
All right. Thanks, Bubba. Good luck this
Thanks.
weekend. All right. We have Joy Logano, driver of the number 22 Shell Pennzoil Ford. So, Joy, you won here at Charlotte Motor Speedway before, but what would it mean to you to get that Coke 600 win?
Yeah, the Coke 600 to me is a crown jewel event. I think of Daytona 500, Brickyard 400, Coca-Cola 600. I think are the three of the biggest races we have all year. As a Coca-Cola driver, I'd like to be spraying this stuff all over Victory Lane. That'd be really nice. So we've been able to win here in the fall race a couple times, but be really special to win the 600-mile race here right now. So feel like we should have a decent shot at it. Today's kind of a interesting day. Usually, for 600 week, you don't want to put a bunch of miles on your motor in practice. So everyone kind of stays in qualifying trim here for today. So you don't really know what you got for race trim, and it's just focused on trying to make as fast a lap as you can today. We were joking. I said, hopefully we make 6 laps today is what we were hoping. 3 in practice and 3 in qualifying. That's kind of just how this schedule works right now with the shorter practice and obviously the extra 100 miles in the race. So today's all about the 1 lap speed, and we'll come back Saturday and keep working on our car to try to make it fast enough to win the race.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions. Go to Jacob.
Jacob Zielman, Speed Sport. Joey, a couple of fellow summer shootout alum have been in here earlier today. So now I'll talk to you because you kind of dominated that scene for a while when you were in your younger years. Talk about what it has meant to come up.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means the shootout's getting older, just like the rest of us.
I know it's happening. It's
20
happening today.
Yeah, 25th anniversary this year, Joey. Talk about what it's meant to come up through running the quarter mile at Charlotte and what it means to see the shootout reach a milestone like that.
Yeah, of course. For me, the summer shootout was always so much fun. That's where a lot of us learned how to race. You learn the nuts and bolts of how to drive a car and how to race other people, and some cases how to fight each other. We had a lot of fun back then. It was pretty rough too. There's a lot of bumping and banging in Legends cars. So it was a good time. For me, it was always me and Reagan, Reed Sorensen. Those were the Van Wingertons, and those guys were the ones that we were always competing against when I was racing here. And I know Bubba raced here. He just left. I know he was kind of the class after me, but definitely a lot of fun. We had a blast. It was for me is me and my dad just coming up here. We were from Atlanta at the time, and we'd come up here and try to figure it out and try to race with those guys, and we just had a good time trying to do it, and was pretty successful at it. So we had a good time.
Back here on left.
Hey, Joey, I'm sure there's been a lot of buzz around Penske, with the Hall of Fame announcements this week. But, you had another nominee on your team with your car chief, Raymond Fox. Can you just speak a little bit about, even though he didn't get it, what, having a guy who's been around the sport as long as him has meant to your team?
Yeah, that's Raymond is his grandfather. So Raymond's our car chief. Is his grandfather. But still really cool, obviously, to have history in our race team from 2 different areas, obviously with Roger Penske and with Raymond as well. So that's definitely something really cool. I think Roger obviously getting into the Hall of Fame, that's to me is the biggest award you can get in the sport, right? That's in the Hall of Fame, that's as good as it gets. So definitely a well-deserving crowd. And you look at the drivers and owners that got inducted here, or I guess got picked. I don't know what we call them at this point, but they're picked to go in the Hall of Fame next year. That's it's an impressive crowd, when you think about who they are and what they've done, and to drive for a Hall of Famer like Roger Penske is only a matter of time before he was inducted into there. And I think with not only the race wins and championships that come along with the pedigree, but what he's done for the sport as far as the racetracks. I think has as much reason for him to get in the Hall of Fame as anything, on how he's able to build our sport from the fan side and the promoting side. I thought was pretty impressive as well.
We're going to go Jerry, Daniel, Lee.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net, Performance Racing Network. First off, I think you just had a birthday, so happy birthday.
I can't hear anything you're saying.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Birthday.
Thank you, yeah.
Also, with the Hall of Fame.
I can't hear anymore. See what happens? I'm getting older. I can't hear.
Well, you've been around for a while.
Yeah, I know.
So, with that said, at some point in the future, do you see yourself ever making it into the Hall of Fame? And if you do, what do you think your legacy would be in this sport?
I mean, I hope so. I'd like to be in the Hall of Fame. That's the ultimate goal, right? And to get there, I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I think you have to contribute to the sport in a lot of different ways. Obviously, wins, championships, that's part of it. But I think what you do off the racetrack a lot of times can get you in the Hall of Fame as well. And what you do for the community, what you do for our racing community as well, and how we build our sport to be bigger, and really taking some ownership in what this thing is all about, and not just driving a race car and going home at the end of the day and not caring about anything else in our sport. That's not. I don't believe that's a Hall of Fame type of person. You know, and the people that are obviously in the Hall of Fame right now didn't think that way at all. They were invested 100% into our sport and how to grow our sport, and obviously that came along with race wins, but they used those race wins for something good, and that to me is a big part of it. Hopefully that's someday I can do that. I'm trying my hardest, doing everything I can do. We're trying to do race as much as I can, win as many races as I can, and try to be invested in the sport and be in every meeting I possibly can outside of that. So that would be a great accomplishment, one that I would say would be my largest accomplishment if I ever got to that point. Yep.
Daniel?
Dylan McFadden with NBC Sports. Joey, how has your strategical approach to this race changed since your rookie year? How has it evolved, especially with the introduction of the stage format last year?
Yes, I remember my first 600-mile race here, and I remember wearing the brakes off the car pretty quick, and actually got faster when I wore the brakes off, so there was more to it at that moment. But it's definitely a racetrack that, a race, the 600-mile race, that you typically wouldn't go hard every lap when there wasn't stages. But now those stage points are so important. Qualifying is important. Keeping yourself up front. But I think more than anything now, I guess as a driver, I've realized the swing that this track's going to go through and where you are from the beginning to the end of the race. This track changes more than any track we go to from day to night. And it's going to go through, a couple swings, right? It's going to go from hot sun out to that twilight kind of moment to dark and cooling off, and the groove comes back down to the bottom. All that stuff will definitely come into play. And then now we got this PJ1 stuff, which Lord knows what's going to happen with that. So there's a lot to take into consideration when we're out there on the track, and the adjustments we make will be key during every pit stop. And I think it just, over time you start to understand what those are more and more.
We're going to go Lee, Woody, and then Reed.
Just wondering, with the package you guys raced last weekend, and giving your prowess on restrictor plate tracks, it wasn't surprising that you were that good. But did your team incorporate any characteristics or anything, I guess, tangible off your Daytona car that would have been used on your car last weekend?
It's a great question. Honestly, I probably can't honestly answer that question for a couple of reasons. I can't tell you, but like I said last week, it's a kind of a hybrid of them both, right? When we go to Daytona, Talladega, especially Talladega, you're pretty trimmed out. Handling's not a huge deal, so you try to trim the cars out as much as you can, take the downforce, which takes the drag off, and trying to just create a top speed. I think you saw a mix of cars last week. You saw some cars, in my mind, I think of the 47 as a car that handled great, looked like he had a lot of downforce in the car, but didn't have the speed to maintain up front. You look at the 4, kind of looked the other way. Looked like when he got out front, he was hard to pass. like he didn't have much drag. But when he got in the back of the pack there, he wasn't making big moves. Like his car was way faster than everybody and able to drive up there easily. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and how that will evolve if we run this package again or whatever happens in the future will be interesting to see how that is. And for each track will be different too, right? I mean, we're talking about one track here at Charlotte, you know, and I thought it was just kind of it was an interesting race to see that. And obviously as the sun went down, the cars that had more speed and less handling showed to be better. So I thought that was just an interesting thing to look at and learn from last week. But to answer your question, do you take much from Talladega? A little bit, you know, driving style, the draft, how that works. You think a little bit about it, but it's still handling came into play quite a bit throughout the race for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not as much as it was here. You know, yes, the cars have way more downforce on them with the bigger spoiler than what we had at Daytona Talladega. You know, handling wasn't a big deal, especially in dirty air when you lost all that downforce. That big spoiler in the back makes the air dirtier, but we're not going as fast, and you're almost wide open, so it doesn't really have a huge effect on losing the car in front of you. But it has a huge effect on just these big moments, right? It looked like we had that in the race. So you had cars that just all of a sudden would jump out sideways and slide up the racetrack, and you had these big moments in the race. I thought that was interesting and fun to watch, entertaining for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's some things that transfer over, but the package is still very different from what Daytona Talladega is. Yep.
I'm going to go Woody and then Reed.
Woody came with MRN. Joey, look ahead for us, if you will, at Pocono next week. You're a former winner there. When you set your car up, are you a guy that likes to chase one corner and be really good or be pretty good in all three?
I want to be really good in all three, if at all possible. That's what we shoot for. You know, and I think every corner is pretty important. I honestly, I think turn 3 and turn 1 are probably the two most important corners. If I'm going to have to compromise, I'm going to compromise turn 2. But the car that wins there and the fastest car typically has a really good 1 and 3 and a decent 2. You know, not that they completely throw it away. There's somehow they get it through that corner fairly well as well. You know, so I think, you know, you try to figure out ways to tie all 3 corners together. A lot of times 2 and 3 kind of go together, and 1's the outlier with all the banking down there. But, you know, I think, you know, as a goal, I try to set high goals, and my goal is to have 3 really good corners. That's my thought. Or 6. How do we look at that? If this is 4 corners, that should be 6 or 3. It should be 2 corners if that's 3 corners. Something to think about.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Given how much this track does change from day to night, if you're really good in the daylight, how do you anticipate what you might need when the sun goes down?
Just over history, really, and you know, just races under your belt. You know, and it's not just for the race, but think about, we just practiced in the heat of the day, and we're going to qualify into the night as the sun's going down. And the track's going to have quite a bit of transition, and it's going to change quite a bit. And the Xfinity cars are laying down rubber, right? We didn't really lay down any rubber, just making qualifying runs. So these guys making long runs now, what that'll do to the racetrack, what it'll do to the PJ1 that's on the racetrack, as the track cools off, what that's going to do. You know, we just kind of go through our notes and what's happened in the past, and we take an educated guess at it, and then hope for the best after that.
All right. Thanks, Joey, and good luck this weekend.
All right, great. Thanks, guys.